Greetings for whatever time of the day it is in your part of the world. I am Gunjan Veda with the Movement for Community-Led Development, and it is my absolute pleasure and honor to be working with all of you today with my colleague, Steve Ogutu, who is the coordinator of MCLD Kenya. What MCLD is, we will tell you shortly. This session is being held as part of the Skoll World Forum Ecosystem Day events and has been wholly curated and hosted by OneVillage Partners and the Movement for Community-Led Development. So the topic, as you know, is shifting the power, community-led development for a partnership-based society. And I think that kind of explains the purpose that we are all here today for. There has been a lot of understanding, conversations, thinking, acting about community-led development and shifting the power in the last few years. So there is a growing recognition that the international development space, as we know it, international development and humanitarian, have really been perpetuating the power inequities, discriminations, the structural violence, colonialism, etc. of the past. And there has been increasingly an intention, a recognition of the need to look at what we are doing, how we are doing it, how we are acting, to be able to shift power or, kind of balance some of these power differentials that exist. So the conversation, as you all know, is happening in different spaces, from decolonization to DEI to anti-racism to locally led development, localization, community-led development, and various other spheres. What are we going to be doing here today? Well, we are here today because we recognize that power dynamics are everywhere, right? They are between funders and implementing organizations, between INGOs and local organizations, between implementing organizations and communities, within organizations, in spaces like this, right? In events, in panels, when there is a panel, power dynamic between participant and panelists, between facilitators, moderators, panelists, and participants. And the important thing, at least for us, about shifting the power is that it requires conscious work from each one of us at every point in every space. Some of it is easy, some of it is not very easy. And so what we want to do here today is to change the format, the traditional format of doing these events a little bit, to see if we can address some of the power dynamics that exist in forums like this. So we would request you to engage with us and with the adaptations that we are trying to make as we learn and go along with this process. But even before we go there, I want to first apologize to everybody who will not be able to fully participate in this session because we have not been able to offer simultaneous translation. We recognize that language itself is a tool of power and is a way of denying or providing access. And so we will try and remedy that in future sessions. Having said that, we are a lot of people, 97 right now, still the numbers keep going up. So we can't unfortunately have people unmuting. So we will have to follow some of the Zoom etiquette that we know, but I'm going to request everybody to use the chat box to share your ideas, your stories, thoughts that come up. And I'm going to request everybody to also read the chat box if you can, to listen to people's experiences, journeys, and stories as we go along. And the beginning of that process is to really start by introducing yourselves. Because one of the ways of claiming power is by establishing your presence. And it's also a tool for creating a safe environment. So I will recommend that everybody please introduce themselves on chat. I know it's a lot of us, it'll get messy, but sometimes that's okay. And sometimes we need to learn to deal with messiness. I grew up in India. I've lived all my life in India. And I remember as a child, we used to have this in the evenings when we used to go out to play. Some children, 3 or 4 of us would come out, we would get together, hold hands in a circle and start playing. And then other children would keep coming as the evening progressed. every time somebody stepped forward to join us, we would step back. The circle would expand and we would all be able to play together.
What?
I don't remember any time when we told somebody, you know what? You can't play with us. We are full. There's no space for you. And I think of shifting the power. I remember those circles from my childhood. Because to me, shifting the power is about some of us stepping forward and claiming that power which has been systematically and structurally denied to us. And for the rest of us, it is about taking that step back and expanding that circle. So in today's session, we are going to work slightly differently, as I said. We're going to start with 5 wonderful, brave people who are going to share with us their stories of shifting the power. Think of them as that initial 3 or 4 kids who come into the playground, right? And start. But then we are going to invite all of you, all the 112 people that we have right now. And as it grows, we're going to invite all of you to step forward and join that circle as we step back. And how we'll do it, I'll explain as we move around. After that, we're going to share some of our challenges in shifting the power, specifically around community-led development that we encounter both personally and professionally. And we are going to channelize all the power, channelize all the lived experience, all the wisdom that exists in this room, in breakout rooms, as we try and look at what are some of the ways we can tackle them? What are some of the ways that others have tackled them? And finally, when we come back, we're not going to end the session with call to actions with a few people of influence and consequence, because we believe everybody here is a person of influence and consequence and has power and has a role in shifting the power. So we are going to once again invite all of you to share your commitment, your next steps in shifting the power and in community-led development. How much you decide to engage in today's session is completely up to you. But I'll urge you to remember that shifting the power is a conscious decision that each one of us takes at every point of the day. What our role is in today's session, whether it is to step back and listen and create space for people, or whether it is to step forward and share our story and make sure our voices are heard, is for you to decide. Because sometimes shifting the power requires us to step back. Sometimes it requires us to be vulnerable and make ourselves vulnerable, be that first child that enters the playground so that the others see her or him and join them, right? Decide for yourself what your role will be. We will not be traditional moderators and facilitators who will cut off speakers. However, we will give you an indicated time that we think would be fair for everybody and the structure. When you decide to stop speaking is up to you. But again, remember, by taking additional time, you may be taking away somebody's space. So once again, I invite all of you today to step into your role and join us in this conversation on shifting the power as we step into our roles. And with that, I will hand it over to Steve to kind of take us to community-led development and the movement. Steve, over to you.
Thank you very much, Gunjan. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us from. I'm going to take us through, just give a brief overview of MCLD and CLD, basically community-led development. And CLD is a development approach in which local community members work together to identify goals and together, develop and implement plans to achieve those goals. It's basically putting communities at the center and front of their own development, giving them space to make decisions on issues that affect them. And CLD is characterized by 11 attributes, including participation and inclusion, a voice, community assets, capacity development, sustainability, transformative capacity, collective planning and action, accountability, community leadership, adaptability, and collaboration. And I'm sure you'll be learning, we'll be getting insights from our speakers and also from you who've joined us from across the world on what you're doing around CLD and how best we can learn from each other and advance CLD for all in whatever spheres we are from. Next slide, please. Right, so the Movement for Community-Led Development, or MCLD, was launched back in 2015 alongside the SDGs goals in New York. And since then, it generated interest from local CSOs from across the world. And to date, we have over 1,500 members who are subscribed to the goals and principles of MCLD. We have over 68 INGOs spread across the world. And we also have a number of chapters spread across the world. I'm from the Kenya chapter. And in Kenya here, the movement is already working closely with the national government and the county government to make development work for all, using the bottom-up approach, which is really MCLD. For instance, here, we're working with one of the county governments called Makueni to set up a CLD school that's going to be a resource center, building capacity of government officials and community members on how best to utilize CLD as an approach to sustainable development. And you can see we have a number of members, including the Hunger Project, which is a founding member and offering serving as the global secretariat for the movement. We have Oxfam, BRAC, Save the Children, Global Communities, and many other organizations that are subscribed to MCLD. Right, and I think with that, I'm now going to invite our first speaker for the day. Our first speaker for the day is Chad McCarrick. Chad is a country director for OneVillage Partners from Sierra Leone, and he's going to be sharing with us what OneVillage Partner is doing in terms of shifting the power in Sierra Leone and sharing some insights on how we can scale that even in our other programs and projects across the world. Over to you, Chad.
All right, thanks, Steve. Yes, hi everyone. I'm here in Freetown, Sierra Leone, and I'm country director of OneVillage Partners. So our mission is to enhance collective well-being by investing in people and communities through partnership. We implement solutions that are created by rural communities to address multidimensional poverty in their own community, and we are a member of the Movement for Community-Led Development. Our model is an alternative to the traditional aid model. Traditionally, decision-making on development projects are done far away, and funding priorities are decided by those who don't have connection to the land or to those benefiting from the project itself. But as was stated earlier by Gunjan, there's a growing awareness of the inequity of this process and about the extent that we still view humanitarian interactions with the global south through a very colonial lens. Decolonization has become a popular term, but what we're really talking about here is shifting the power away from those who have traditionally made decisions and to those where the aid will be received. But what does decolonization actually look like? And I want to talk to you about some concrete ways that OneVillage Partners is trying to decolonize our work and to shift power in Sierra Leone. But first, bear with me, I'm going to bring in some theory. I want to introduce you to partnerism, developed by historian and anthropologist Dr. Rianne Eisler. Partnerism is a socioeconomic system that values and rewards caring for one another, nature, and our collective future. In her book, The Chalice and the Blade, Dr. Eisler explores the difference between societies built on domination and societies built on partnership. The patriarchy or colonialism is a social system of domination, whereas self-help groups and cooperatives are examples of social systems of partnership. OneVillage Partners emphasizes partnerism in its work, and not just by working in partnership with villages in a community-led development framework, and not just because we have the word partners in our title. We train a network of volunteers in each community to identify their priority needs and co-create a project with us that can address that need directly. Usually it begins with basic needs such as water and sanitation. This means that we don't make decisions on the project, the community does. It also means that we work in a broad spectrum of projects, implementing smaller projects such as agriculture, skills training, public health, and more. We also share the budget of our projects in the community with community members. One community member said to us that they had 7 different development projects come to their community previously, and we were the first to show not just the cost of the project, but also ask them what they thought was a priority to implement in their village. We focus on inclusive programs for women to have more agency in household decision-making around finances, and we focus on building communication skills within families and society, promoting partnerism at a household level too. We build platforms for traditional and modern local government representatives to engage in community development plans together. Through this work, we believe we can enhance collective well-being holistically. Since our programs are built on networks of collaboration, we pay as much attention to indicators of social cohesion as we do health or economic indicators. But we still have a system of domination in our governments and in our economic systems. So how do we scale up this power shift from the grassroots of Sierra Leone and truly decolonize aid? So this graphic shows what we believe is the path forward. We know that equality is insufficient. Only equity can address the historical injustices, but we need to do more. What we need to do is engage in a collaborative effort at justice to undo the barriers that keep people marginalized. This is the true shift of power, when we can engage in partnerships to dismantle the injustice of the status quo system. But then what comes next? This also is part of shifting power, to bring about a liberated society. OneVillage Partners, using our connections and networks, we want to provide a platform for Sierra Leoneans to engage in and discuss what a liberated society looks like to them, what a society in Sierra Leone that would be built on partnerism actually looks like. In dialogue with our community partners, we ask them this very question. And these are some of the responses we get about what they view a liberated society to be and what a shift towards a partnership-based society would look like. Some of the answers we get are where individual needs are met by shared needs being met, where people can take steps for their development needs without waiting for others to do it for them, where women are prioritized. True equity exists, especially under the law, where there is true shared learning across cultures and class, and it means ever expanding rights that protect everyone. So shifting the power doesn't mean something that we do once. Partnerism is not just a new feature that we need to put into our plan design and organizational policies. It really means providing platforms for those who have been traditionally left out unjustly from decisions about their socioeconomic development. And it means listening to what their vision of an equitable society looks like. For a community-led organization like ours, it means using our own networks and connections to power and privilege to help our community partners in Sierra Leone achieve their own visions. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Chad, for sharing with us what, OneVillage Partners' journey with partnerism and decolonization. And now I am going to invite Dr. Rebecca Daly. I first met Dr. Rebecca in 2019, and since then, every single time I have spoken to her is an inspiration. She is a living example of how one can shift the power despite systemic violence and discrimination. She is currently joining us from Jos in North Central Nigeria. Dr. Daly, over to you. And I will share your slides.
Okay. What is power? According to the Oxford English Dictionary, power incorporates ability, control, and influence. Simply put it, ability to do something or take decision, and then ability to direct or influence others. In his book, The Abuse of Power, Pauline recognized that power is a complex term. Yet, at a personal level, all persons have some power by virtue of being alive, along with an inner drive to use power to become all they can be. Some are denied to exercise their power. So, power, everybody has power. And the important highlight here is that each one of us has power. Now, this power has been systematically denied to us. We may have been robbed by male-dominated society, racism, colonialism, and all forms of discrimination. And that is why we need to shift power from those who became too powerful due to this system of violence and discrimination to those whose power was taken away. I am from Northeast Nigeria. You may have heard about Boko Haram and terrorists. Our communities and people face constant violence, adoption, kidnapping, rape, and all atrocities committed on a daily basis. I run an organization called CEPI, that is Center for Caring, Empowerment, and Peace Initiative. And we have a lot of lists of people killed. And this, it has generated a generation of widows and orphans, and all this, we collected the data from both Christian and Muslims. So, how can you shift power? You cannot even imagine the feeling of powerlessness that exists when your daily, day-to-day activities is overshadowed with the threat of violence. How do you send girls to school? Will they come back home? How do you go out to work? What if they are killed, abducted, or raped? Who will look after your children or family? Should you just move out of your homes and village and become refugees to search for food or livelihood or shelter elsewhere? I know this fear, this uncertainty. I'm one of the survivors of this violence. My story of violence and then trauma in Northeast Nigeria, it became, even when I was born, before I was born, my maternal great father and grandmother and two grand uncles, 2 years and 2 days old, were taken by the slave traders between the 18th and 19th century. And my grandfather escaped at age of 5. My mother was forced to live in the forest because she was a leper And because of the leprosy, people will not accept her in the community. Earlier memory of this, basic needs has become problem. I almost walk naked. I hawk and sell things on the street. And I was like very, every day in danger. And when I was 6, one person raped me. As a child and as a mother, family, I have been chronically displaced many times. And we are still away from our homes. Now I'm in the US together with my son. My son got lost during the 2011 Jaws crisis. I don't know whether he's dead or alive. My niece was taken away in my degree. Many relatives, including my cousin, and I felt hunger. I was hungry and all this. And I was even kidnapped on my way going to Chibok in 2014. So I am a survivor. But my faith in God, my research, and all this, I decided that violence will not dictate my life. I work hard. I do not let Boko Haram or any violence to take back my power. I pursue my PhD and I studied hard. I began Center for Caring, Empowerment, and Peace Initiative. And we helped more than 2 million people with relief. We have acute immediate needs, and then with food, shelter, housing, healthcare, water and sanitation, and then long-term need, building resilience and rebuilding community, trauma healing, reintegration of women and children who were taken by Boko Haram. And all this, we have a lot of things to show. So the comparison showed that we have a lot of dead people, and the new generation are both Christian and Muslims because we walk among them. But then, because of how we have been shifting power, we have our, we are still building, and then I and some other women, 30 organizations, we form a strategic action for community development in Nigeria. And we are present in 22 states. And because of this work, we are really impacting lives of individuals. And so you can shift power. And today through CEPI, through SACDIC, we have been ensuring women, children who have been affected by violence that they can step into their own power. I tell you this story to remind you that each one of us has power and has the ability to shift power. I did it. My colleague at CEPI and SACDIC are doing it. And it is every day in the face of violence and threat. So we can shift power. Thank you very much for the organizers, and thank you for everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rebecca, for that very powerful story. Before I hand it over to Steve, I wanted to say that Dr. Rebecca actually put down that story for us on slides so that everyone has access, even people who are not very fluent in English, because she's gone through this herself. So thank you for that, Dr. Rebecca.
Great. Indeed, thanks very much, Dr. Rebecca, for sharing with us that powerful story of resilience and the great work that you are doing under CEPI and the strategic action for community development, and how you are shifting the power by supporting victims of violence in Nigeria. Keep doing that great work. Now, our next speaker is Danielle O'Hara. Danielle O'Hara is a community relations officer at the Mortenson Family Foundation. She'll be sharing with us what her organization is doing in terms of shifting the power and sharing some insights on how we can shift the power in our different countries as well. Over to you, Danielle.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And thank you all. It's great to be here this morning here and at other times of the day in other parts of the world. It's just an honor to be able to share a little bit of our story. I'm with the Mortenson Family Foundation, like Steve said, and we're thinking about and pushing ourselves in a lot of ways to support community-led development, including our own decision-making processes and how we share power within our foundation. So Mortenson is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And as you probably know, for the past couple of years, Minneapolis has been at the epicenter of racial reckoning in the United States and throughout the world. In the summer of 2020, just a week or two after the murder of George Floyd, our foundation made a set of commitments around racial equity that we hold ourselves accountable to. The commitments are that we want to increase the amount of grant making we do in Black, Indigenous, and people of color-led organizations, as well as organizations that are led by and for the communities they serve. We want to increase our grant making to systems change and advocacy work, and we want to share power by bringing community members into our grant making processes. So the foundation's been working on these things and trying to understand our relationship to equity and power and equitable grant making for some years prior to 2020. But the murder of George Floyd really pushed us to move what was largely an internal reflection into outward action. I want to talk about the work we've done around power sharing or bringing community members into our grant making processes. We started with our environmental program, which at the time was our smallest grant portfolio. It's one of 3 grant programs we have. We have environment in Minnesota, we have education in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and we have international development in Africa and Central America. For the environmental grant making, we knew that if we were going to be able to work towards the commitments I just described, supporting more Black, Indigenous, people of color-led organizations and systems change and advocacy work, that we'd need to engage a broader base of the community than we were engaging at the time with our environmental grant making. At the time, our grant making was pretty narrowly focused on the environmental conservation community. We concentrated on working at a watershed scale on water quality issues and on habitat protection and biodiversity conservation. We knew, at the very least, we probably needed to change how we talked about the work in order to communicate with a broader audience. So we started with a fairly extensive community engagement process that lasted through the first part of 2021. The process was a deep examination of the alignment of our guidelines with our racial equity commitments and an exploration of what it would take to align them. And through that process, we got really excellent feedback that enabled us to redraft our guidelines. And we had the opportunity to meet and work with some really excellent community members throughout Minnesota, including 5 who we invited to join our grant making committee. So prior to inviting these 5 community members onto the committee, our committee was composed of 4 Mortenson family members. So now we have a 9-person committee. And the first piece of work that committee did was to finalize the draft of our new environmental grant guidelines, which are now focused on equitable access to land and water. We then decided to do a pilot round of grant making with a modest budget to test and get feedback on our new guidelines. We just launched this pilot round in February, and we're at the tail end of making grant decisions. And everything about this has been new. Everything about the process, every step we take, we realize we have to create the foundation to land that step on. So from our outreach, everything is new. You know, kind of our outreach went through much broader and new networks, and we combined it with a nomination process from our committee members who brought forward organizations they know from their work and their lives in the community. It's required a more streamlined application process than ones that we used in the past, because we're trying to put less burden on our applicants, which requires us to get really clear on what information we really need. It's required new processes for reviewing with our new committee. In a lot of ways, we're building the road as we travel it, but we're also asking for feedback from everyone concerned, from applicants to people who came to information sessions but didn't apply, to our committee members, and et cetera, so that as we move forward, we can refine and improve. So I'll stop there, but just want to share that, you know, kind of sharing power is just one of the ways that we are making community-led development come alive in our foundation, and it feels like a really critical step for a grant-making organization. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. So now we've heard three powerful stories. We've heard about an NGO talking about their process of change. We've heard about a foundation and the process of reflection and change that they have, you know, been going through. And we heard from a very powerful survivor who decided to take back the power that was being denied to her. Now we are going to open the space up and invite all of you to join us in sharing your stories of shifting the power. And once we've had a little bit of that, once we've expanded our circle, we'll invite Faustina and Adriana in. But right now, I want to invite all of you. So here's what we are going to do. Obviously, we can't have 136, 140 people speaking at once and sharing. That won't work too well. You'll see a link in the chat box. That link is to an app called Mural. When you click on it, you will come to a screen which has a number of small post-its on it. And you'll see the screen that will first ask you for a name, so you can put your name, and then you'll see a number of small post-its on it. Take any post-it and write whatever you want to write about your journey. It can be in any language. It doesn't have to be in English. Write in the language that works for you, that you are comfortable in. And for those of you who are not able to go onto that separate screen because it's not easy, especially if you're on a mobile device, feel free to put it in chat and we will still be collating everything. Again, you may put your name into your chat if you're comfortable. If you're not, don't. It's your decision. Whatever you choose to do with the board and whatever part of your story you choose to share with us and with everybody here is up to you. So Kate, maybe what we can do is that if we can bring up the board here so that people can see things as they are coming up, and we'll give everybody a few minutes to think and put things in there. Also, we will leave this board, the storyboard, open for the next 24 hours, which means that you can always go back and put in things as you want to do that. And I realize we may actually not have enough post-its there. So please feel free to use the chat if you're not able to locate the post-it. And we'll create a much bigger collagen board with everybody's stories and send it to all members who attended today. And if you have trouble finding a post-it, like I said, put it in the chat here. It's fine. We'll collate it. Sure. I will repost the link. Actually, I will request Gabby if you could repost the link, please. I think somebody was having problem accessing it. And while we are all writing and thinking and sharing our stories, I know some people are more comfortable speaking than they are writing. And so we do have a minute or two for people to share their stories. We don't have a lot of time, so I'll request you to keep it to a minute or two what you share with us. But feel free to raise your hand if you prefer speaking. And we may not be able to bring everybody in right now, but we'll try and do that throughout the session today. So raise your hand if you are more comfortable speaking and would like to share your journey or story of shifting the power personally or organizationally in a minute for us. No problem. If somebody is late, that's fine. We're just sharing. For people who are just joining, we are putting in what shifting the power means to us, either into the chat box or into the mural that is there. And we have also requested anybody who's willing to speak and share their story in a minute or so to please raise their hands. For those of you who are not sure where the raise hand button is, if you press reactions, which is about in the center of your screen, you will see a raise hand button there. Yeah, Pradeep, sure, please unmute. And in a minute, maybe you can share with us your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm happy that you have given that chance, and I'm so grateful. Looking at this, even if shifting power, which is we worked with this distressed migrants community, and where it's water is scarcity, employment is scarcity, food and nutrition is also scarcity, and it was a hue and cry, and this is one of the business also for others also, because labor contractors, I never had this labor contractor, but it's during this in West North, I worked together with community during heavy drought. I came to know that labor contractors are there, so that it's very difficult. Even if it's women, children, family, they all are moving far away. It's far away and taking something advanced, so that is going for the brick lane. It's the entire village is getting out of this, even if it's social program. It's the entire village was empty, and we got a chance to work with how to make them collectivization, and it's bringing their this is the issues at the common fora, and it got it registered and putting into in government labor department. And thanks, and we raised the issue. This is a panchayat, and panchayat is the lowest governance system in this village in Odisha, and they agreed, and it was a kind of it's a nexus within the police, labor department, and the railway department, so that it's to bring them to far away, and it's there is no space in general body, buggy, and it's like animals all are it was a jam packed, and children are also very crying that there's no sanitation, no food, there is it's nothing else during also transit, and anyway, as we convene this panchayat sarpanch, and it's get connected, and it's located even 10,000 people, and we provided one kind of migrant card, because during travel, police the laborers, they got tortured with this police in the name of this is the dacoits or the thieves or like this. so that we decided to make them at least recognize they are the distress migrants, and they are going for this work, or they are going for in search of any kind of work to live in, and to get only the food, and like this. So it was succeeded. It's a 10,000, and virtually it was a good kind of network within this in India, and 33 network partners we work together. And it's any issue raises during this. I am audible?
Yeah, we could hear you, Pradeep. We heard
Yeah,
everything
yeah, yeah.
that you said.
So it's
Thank you.
any issue, any issue in the brick clean, it's labor issue, payment issue, health issue, education issue, entitlement issue. We should not go there, but we should it's well discussed with our counterpart there, so that they are bringing it at this digital administration, and it's very well it was resolved. And it is when the district collectors and officials, they came to know that we are with this the distress migrants, labor force and workforce, they delighted, and they came forward. Any issue, please come to me, and I can resolve it. And it's a few powerful officers they engaged, and they arrested also very powerful persons in that locality because of this distress labor management. So why I am talking to it, and there are several humanitarian issues are there. Also, this humanitarian, the survival issues are there, food is there, education is there, entitlement issues are there. So it could have been well resolved with the strongest negotiation with the district administration and deepening the governance within the community, so that it has minimized now. It has minimized it up to a large extent. So this we are happy, and it is small work, but it has a very good social impact, and it's putting them, this is labor collectives, then this training, capacity building, varieties of training, mason, plumber, and there are so yes, I'm closing it. So that it's learning is huge, and it is now. So automatically the collectives is running right now, because we are out of this that program. Now it is we are happy that collectives are running well, and it's this is the humanitarian response during the drought. So just I was sharing one of my learning working with the workforce, distressed women, men, and children workforce. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing, Pradeep. We appreciate hearing from Orissa. And thank you everyone who has actually put in all this, who've shared their journeys on the board. We will come back, Dr. Saidu, to you as we go along. But right now, I am going to request Steve to bring in our other two people who were in the circle first. Dr. Saidu, we will come back to you. Again, I will request everybody who is speaking, please respect the time, because every additional time and extra time that you take up, it means somebody else will not get to speak and will not get to share. And I know it's very difficult. I know all of us have a lot and very powerful stories to share, but that is the story of power also. How difficult it is to remember in that moment what is happening and what we are doing. Steve, over to you. Dr. Saidu, I know you've raised your hand, and we will come back to you in a little bit. Steve?
Thank you very much, Gunjan, and thank you all for taking your time to, share with us your thoughts around, what shifting the power to local communities really mean. And we'll be later on, we'll be getting some thoughts from some of you on to just explain to us what you really meant by the words you indicated there. So right now we are continuing with our conversation on shifting the power to local communities and what it actually means. And our next speaker is Adriana Casari. Adriana is the USAID's Program Resources and Performance Director. She's based in Paraguay. Adriana, if you could take it away and just share with us some of the great work you're doing in terms of shifting the power in Paraguay as USAID. Thanks, over to you.
Thank you so much, Steve, and welcome everybody. It's really nice to be here and listen to all of you. So for USAID, shifting the power to local communities and locally led development really means letting local actors set their own development agendas, establish their own needs, develop the solutions, develop and implement the solutions they need, and bring the capacity, the leadership, and the resources to make those solutions a reality. Some time ago, about a year ago, Administrator Samantha Power, USAID Administrator Samantha Power, in her very famous Georgetown speech, delivered what was her new vision for development and her new vision for the agency. And she called it localization, which is a very interesting term. And I want to share with you what USAID understands by localization. When we talk about localization, we're really talking about putting local contexts, aspirations, dynamics, organizations, and change agents at the center of our programming, at the center of our development efforts. And so this approach entails, first of all, understanding that development needs to be driven by local priorities, not by donor priorities and not by donor funding. We also need to understand that we need to shift leadership and decision-making to local actors and to local organizations, and understand that our role is to act as catalysts and facilitators, but not leaders. We need to learn to listen, to gather feedback, and most importantly, we need to foster downward accountability among USAID, its local implementing partners, and the constituents or program beneficiaries that we serve. We also believe that localization means transitioning from partnerships with international organizations and actors to partnerships with local actors. But in order to do that, we really need to start building the capacity of local actors, not by donating to them, but by giving them the tools that they need to determine their development priorities and come up with their own solutions. And building capacity really means working with civil society, with the private sector, with the central and local governments from a holistic approach. So working with all local stakeholders to build their capacity. And then finally, for USAID, localization also means empowering our local staff, understanding that there's an amazing amount of talent and knowledge within our local staff in every country. And we need to empower them to act as team leaders, as project managers, and as mentors for local implementing partners if we're really going to support sustainable development. So there's really a broad spectrum to locally led development, and most or all development programs fall somewhere along this spectrum. We can start by informing local actors of what we intend to do or consulting with local actors. We can partner with them. We can start delegating power, but ultimately what we need to, our end goal needs to be to actually support local partners so that our development initiatives originate with and are managed by host country stakeholders. So all of us fall somewhere along this spectrum. Fostering local leadership is really what shifting the power is about. And Administrator Power has set two very important goals for USAID, for the agency moving forward. The first of those is that over the next 4 years, she has challenged us to channel 25% of the agency's funding directly to local organizations. The second goal for USAID is that over the next decade, we need to make sure that at least 50% of our programs really do incorporate and build a local voice into them. So what are we doing in Paraguay to embrace localization and an administrator powers new approach? Well, first of all, I'm really proud to say that USAID Paraguay works almost exclusively with local partners. Over 90% of our funding is channeled through local partners. We believe that is the most cost efficient, but also the most sustainable way to do development work. But local partners need capacity building. They need support in terms of strategic planning. They need to learn how to monitor impact rather than just track outputs and outcomes. They need to learn to evaluate their interventions, to learn from mistakes and adapt their interventions accordingly. And so that's the role that we play. USAID becomes a catalyst, a facilitator, and we become mentors of our implementing partners in that capacity building process. But capacity building is not just for implementing partners, it's also for our beneficiaries. It's also for the government, and it's for the private sector. We need to work with all of these stakeholders to build their capacity. We also need to look at development from a holistic approach, helping our partners establish mutually beneficial relationships that allow them and their communities to thrive. And I want to share, try to very briefly share an example with you. We have an inclusive value chains project in the northeastern area of Paraguay, an area where poverty levels are the highest in the country. Inequality is also extremely high, and there are limited economic opportunities. We work with small farmer organizations, help build their capacity. Our implementing partner is the Federation of Producer Cooperatives, a federation of cooperatives with presence, a local organization, of course, which has presence all over the country and which actually has skin in the game. And we bring these small farmer associations together with larger cooperatives and with agribusinesses in their area of influence. USAID acts as a facilitator and a catalyst. We're not providing technical assistance. We ask the larger cooperatives and the agribusinesses to provide technical assistance to the small farmers in terms of increased productivity, in terms of increased quality. This benefits the larger cooperatives because they in turn receive the steady supply and the steady quality that they need to sell their products in the market. And it benefits the small farmers because they get a fair price for their product. They've now increased productivity and they have increased their income. So by establishing these mutually beneficial relationships, we really help communities thrive. Now, small farmer associations and the larger cooperatives are working together to advocate for reform, to advocate with their local governments for improved infrastructure and increased services in their areas. And this all becomes a joint effort for their community's development. One thing that I would like to underscore and that we take very close to heart in Paraguay is mentoring from our local staff. Again, I've already mentioned this before, but we believe in the power of local actors and in the knowledge of local actors. We have very senior locally employed staff who actually manage our programs, who act as technical mentors for implementing partners, but who also really, we like to say we try to hold their hands throughout the development effort. So mentoring, implementing partners and mentoring beneficiaries is really at the cornerstone of what we do in terms of capacity development. So because we're limited in terms of time, I just want to close by saying that to us, shifting the power means believing, fundamentally believing that given the right tools and the right resources, local communities are capable. They're capable of leading their own development. Our role as donors is limited to acting as catalyzers and facilitators, giving local communities that little nudge that they need to implement their own solutions and thrive. So thank you very much.
Wow, and thank you so much for sharing with us the USAID localization agenda and the great work that you're doing in Paraguay in terms of catalyzing locally led, locally owned, and locally managed initiatives that is, transforming the country and communities in Paraguay. So our next speaker is Faustina Gabler. Faustina is a woman community leader from the Akode epicenter in Ghana. And it's supported by the Hunger Project. So Faustina will be sharing with us, her own story and how the epicenter model in Ghana is helping to shift the power across communities there. So Faustina, I'm going to hand it over to you. Take it away, Faustina.
Hi, my name is Faustina Gabra, Akode epicenter from Ghana. In most cases, power and resources for development are controlled by top, but there is increasing need to shift power and give opportunity to local people at community level. After all, it has often said, he who lives near fire feels the heat. Local people have the potential to do things for themselves. We only need opportunity, resources, trust, and encouragement to be able to help our community to live high in development. We shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes because mistakes are springboards for development and the path that lead to discovering of new ways of doing things. I was born in Togome, a small community of about 600 people in Akode epicenter. I started school in 1996 and started secondary school at Somenya and continued to do a diploma course. Taking care of myself as a teenage girl. I later started savings and loan scheme as a bookkeeper in 2012 with 10 members and a seed capital of 25,000 Ghana cedis. But now we can boast of 245 digitized members and another 155 ledger card bearing members. Now, I'm still the bookkeeper and have trained another person to take over from me whenever I am no longer there. I am a women empowerment program animator in my community. I also served as chairperson of the school management committee for 5 years. I traveled around the 5 communities to educate people on human rights, child rights, domestic violence, child maintenance, child labor, and gender equality. I am also a treasurer of my church. Through our leadership, my community now has rural clinic, vocational center for girls who have dropped out of school, and an ICT center. Let us all join hands to shift the power to community level and give more opportunity to women in decision making, and we will all live to see the world develop in growth and bounds. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faustina, and thank you so much also to everybody who has been sharing their stories over chat. It is inspiring, and we've heard very different kinds of stories today. Our purpose was to show that it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter who you are. you have the power to shift the power, and you have a role in shifting the power. Kate, if we can quickly get the slide deck up. We are running slightly late. So what we're going to do is the following. We are not going to, you don't need to hear me talk about my challenges and dilemmas as a CLD practitioner. Instead, what we will do is we will directly go into breakout rooms now, which will be for 15 minutes. There'll be small discussions, and we really hope that we will be able to channelize the experience, the lived experience, knowledge, wisdom, and power in this room to be able to identify some of the challenges that we face in doing this work of community-led development or shifting the power organizationally or personally, and some of the ways we can find to address them, right? So if you hear somebody talking about the challenge and you have faced it and you have a way of doing it, please do share it with your group. The facilitators will simply be there to listen and make sure nobody is speaking over each other and the process. We're not really doing anything else in the breakout rooms. Everybody else is talking and sharing, and please see if you can have a note taker to take some notes, because we won't have time to share back when we come to the main group, but I know that there'll be a lot of rich discussion. So please, note takers, please do bring in your notes into the main room and put them there and paste them for us. Kate and Gabby, are we ready?
Give us 1 second. We're going to paste the questions into the chat so that those are available
But
while
it's
you're in
just
break.
Talking about our challenges and how we've been tackling it. So we can just directly go in.
Here we go.
And then when we come back, we will do one final board and round of expanding the circle. Welcome back, everyone. We are almost at the end of our session. We had a lot more to cover, but we have a lot less time. So we're going to skip a few steps. And what we are going to do now is we are going to once again broaden the circle, and we are going to invite you all. We won't do a traditional close with us telling you next steps or asking or sharing. We will invite all of us present here to define those next steps for us. So Gabby and Kate, who've been working tirelessly behind the scenes, are going to put up the link to another mural. And this is a commitment mural. And this is a mural where you talk about and you write one step that you can take as an organization or a person in your personal capacity to shift the power. And I would really, really encourage you to put your name, if you can, with that commitment. I think there is something that we hold ourselves to if we are serious about it. Gabby, do we have the thing on chat? Oh, Kate has put in the commitment board. And in the meantime, I am going to request all the group note takers to please paste their notes into the chat box. Don't worry about trying to read them. We won't have time. We know we have a commitment board going on. We will collate everything and put this into one space so that everybody here has a chance to explore all the content, the richness of the discussions, the ideas that took place in the different rooms. We had about 12, 13 rooms, I think. So there was a lot of rich conversation that was going on. And we'll share it with you. But we can only do that if all the note takers share their notes with us here. So please paste the notes in the chat box if you were a note taker for your group. And then please move on to the commitment board to put in your commitments, one commitment, organizational or personal, that you would make to shift the power. And I know I promised Dr. Saidu that I will bring him in to the circle. So Dr. Saidu, I'm going to request you, but I'm really going to request you to please keep your intervention to a minute so that we have to close then. We are at the end of time, but you wanted to share, so please do share. You are muted, Dr. Saidu. You have to unmute yourself. Dr. Saidu, you're still muted. You have to unmute yourself, please.
Yes. I am Saidu Amaza. Yes, I came from far north of Nigeria, former Northeast, present Borno State, now village Aswandali, where the powerful lady came from, Dr. Rebecca. I am now situated a resident in Jos, Plateau State Capital. Really, I am physiotherapy by profession. I do assist vulnerable people and the victim of crisis. Right now, that's what I'm doing. And I am a member of Strategy Led Development, which are formed by Dr. Rebecca Daly. I want to really back the shifting power. With the shifting power, I think most of our
Dr. Saidu, we are not able to.
As commitments, violent atrocity because of the imagination that imposed on them. So I am in support of that shifting by serious, come out to a vital program that people will see and learn, and the equality of the gender will be practicalized much, much better.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saidu. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate your sticking to time on this. So the commitment board is going to be open. It is going to stay open for the next 24 hours. We will encourage all of you to put it in. And also, like I said, if you can, put in your name. Say that you are making that commitment. We will be sharing both the boards. We will be sharing everything that came up in chat. We will be sharing the recording. So all the content from the session will be available. It is all our content. We were all creating it together. So it will be available to everyone, and it is for everybody, right? Gabby, can you put the link to the second board? I think it got lost and everything. So we will share that. Don't worry about that. Keep putting in the commitment boards. I want to end in a very non-traditional manner. Like I said, I don't want to be your close that we are doing as facilitators. I want this board to really be our close when all of us are making a commitment together. But I do want to hand it over to Steve to see if he wants to thank anybody and what. Just to say a very big thank you to all of you for engaging with us, for participating in this process, for sharing, for being so active, and for helping us to shift the power a little bit through the session. Steve, over to you.
Wow, thank you very much, Gunjan, and thanks to all of you for finding time to join us today and for the great insights that our speakers have shared with us, and those that even you, the participants, have shared with us through the chat box and just even in the breakout sessions, and we appreciate that. And let's continue advancing CLD for all and shifting the power in wherever space we are representing here today. Over to you, Gunjan.
That's it. I think in the normal, if you don't know the movement, if you are interested in, please find us, mcld.org, join us, support us in the shifting the, power journey, share with us your ideas. Thank you very much. And a big shout out to OneVillage Partners, Kate and Gabby, who've silently been working to make this all possible. Keep putting things into the commitment board. And if people want to just unmute and say bye, feel free to do that. We have a tradition in the movement. We all unmute and say bye together at the end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Very much.
Very much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.